what I want to do is I want to talk about an email that I got. What I'll be doing from time to time is responding to emails that I get from you guys asking me certain questions. There's actually an email that I have set up that is designed for just that. I'm pretty sure Peter's going to put that up here somewhere in this video, where you guys can submit your questions and I'll address them here on a podcast, just depending on what I have going on, what guest I have that day, so forth and so on. This episode of the Colion Noir Podcast is brought to you by Vetter Holsters. Welcome to another episode of the Colion Noir Podcast. This is going to be another solo podcast. So real quick, the last solo podcast I did, I think some people didn't understand what was happening. I think they kind of looked at it like a regular video. Like I said before, sometimes I'm going to have guests. Sometimes I'm just going to be here by myself talking to you guys in kind of a more casual, conversational manner. And so I'll try to do a better job of distinguishing what's what in the actual thumbnail, because I think some people were confused about that. But either way, here we are today for another episode. And what I want to do is I want to talk about an email that I got. What I'll be doing from time to time is responding to emails that I get from you guys asking me certain questions. There's actually an email that I have set up that is designed for just that. I'm pretty sure Peter's going to put that up here somewhere in this video, where you guys can submit your questions and I'll address them here on a podcast, just depending on what I have going on, what guest I have that day, so forth and so on. But I came across this email from someone, I can't remember the name. I'll have Peter pop it up here. And this person asked me a question. It was very specific in a weird way, but not a weird way. But the question was, what is the best micro compact handgun that has 10 rounds? And immediately my thoughts go, okay, this person must live in a restricted state. They must live in a place like California or something like that. And so that's the only reason why I think somebody would want to know, just because right now we live in a world, in a time period where there are so many guns that are in that kind of micro space that actually have a lot more rounds than 10 rounds. But maybe this person lives in a restrictive state. I'm not entirely sure. So I'm going to answer that question because there are a lot of good guns in this kind of spectrum. And also in various price points. And so I'm going to talk about those. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about my favorite ones that are personal to me, that I enjoy, that I own. But I want to start with this guy here. This guy right here. You see, this is the Glock 26. The Glock 26, back when I started getting into the firearm space, this was the epitome of the micro compact. I mean, yeah, this was the epitome of the micro compact gun with 10 rounds. Now, this particular Glock 26 is outfitted with a Terran Tactical base plate, which gives me, I believe it was 13 plus 1. But by and large, the Glock 26 with its flush mag was the epitome of the micro compact. And there's nothing micro compact about this gun. This gun is actually kind of thick, but I loved it. And I still love it to this day. It just doesn't really make sense for me to carry it as much just because of the options that I'm going to be talking about here today. But it's a gun that was really good. I even wrote, I did a write-up on it and said if I could only carry one gun, it would have been this gun, the Glock 26. I mean, that was years ago. I mean, we're talking maybe 8-9 years ago when I wrote that. And does that hold true today? Not so much, just because there are better offerings out there. But if microness is not your biggest issue and you're just looking for something that's small, easy to carry, and reliable, man, you can't go wrong with the Glock 26 except for maybe the magazine capacity, right? But I mean, even here, I have this Glock 26 fitted with Terran Tactical base plate that gives me 13 plus 1, and it's still really small. So I was basically trying to do with this what we get now, just regular guns that are even smaller. So this was the standard. This was the gold standard initially. All right, so I've got to give a quick shout out to Vetter Holsters. They're now sponsoring the podcast. I've been using their light tuck kydex inside the waistband holster, and what I really like is how adjustable it is. You can tweak the ride height and cant to get it exactly how you want. Plus, they've got holsters for over 450 gun models in 75 different colors, so you can pretty much find whatever you need. But here's the thing that really sets them apart: their customer service. I've heard so many stories about how they've gone above and beyond to make sure you're happy with your holster. And with a lifetime warranty and a 30-day money-back guarantee, it's clear they stand behind their products. If you're in the market for a great holster, check them out at betterholsters.com. And as time went on, as advancements in magazine technology, in terms of being able to fit more rounds in magazines, we started getting some really small guns with really high capacity. Because, I mean, the standard just from a carry size gun was the Glock 19, which had 15 rounds. And for the longest, that was ideal. 15 rounds, Glock 19 size, good to go. Now we're getting that in guns that are smaller than this. The Glock 26, which is crazy. But sticking within the spectrum of what this person is asking me, 10 rounds, micro size. So I'm going to stick very specific to that because there are some guns that I think carry a lot more, are really good guns, but they're not exactly considered micro size. So let's talk about what micro size is. I like to think of anything micro size being something that if you really, really, really wanted to, you could carry it in your pocket. And it's a gun that is really small, really easy to hide. It's not compact, it's like micro almost. Now, the weird thing about that is I'm sticking specifically to 9mm. I'm thinking in terms of 9mm. All the guns I'm going to talk about here are all in 9mm because generally speaking, that's where you get the smallest size guns. There are the 380s that are really small, like, your Ruger LCP type guns, but I don't. I look at those kind of like backup guns or like boot guns. You don't really need to go down to 380. I just personally don't think you do, just because we have so much advancement in bullet technology that allow you to have the capacity to give you the size that you want in the gun and actually shoot really well. So for me, I'm going to stay away from the 380s. And I'm just going to stick to the 9mm. Now, first up on that list is, and this was if this was the epitome at the time, this next gun was, man, like so far ahead of its time. Like it was nuts. I remember when it first came out, I was like, whoa, what's going on here? What type of sorcery and magic is going on here? And that's going to be the Sig Sauer P365. The P365. And I know I get a lot of shit for saying this. People give me a lot of shit for saying this, but in true fashion, the P365 was a game changer. The P365 changed the game when it came to the micro compact guns, especially high capacity micro compact guns. Because we had micro compact guns in 9mm. We had things like the CAR PM9, but they weren't 10 rounds. Now you're getting guns that are about the size of the CAR PM9, but with 10 rounds. Like you're getting 10 rounds out of a flush magazine. Look at this thing. It's nuts. Like I remember when this came out, my mind was blown. I'm like, how the hell did they do that? And the thing is, you would think, okay, well, they must have made it wider, right? But no, the thickness on this gun is like, there's none. It's slim. It's slimmer than this thing here, the Glock 26. So my mind goes, how'd they do this? And it's all in the magazine. The magazine is everything. I still don't really understand the sorcery and witchcraft they engaged in to get this done. Apparently other companies have too, because now other companies have magazines that are guns that are the same size that do these things. Now, when the P365 came out, I loved it, man. I loved it. And what I really loved about it was the ergonomics. The ergonomics on this gun were exceptional for my hands. And it pointed naturally. I remember, like, I did the video on this and you could see I'm just punching out, boom, on target. Like it was so natural and intuitive for me. And then on top of that, it was so small. And it didn't really recoil. Like, it was a smooth, soft recoil, soft for the size. Recoil, it was just a soft, smooth shooting gun. The gun was almost borderline perfect if you really, really want to get down to it. And in many ways, it still is perfect. Like this, if I'm going to have to say there's a gun that is the perfect or close to perfect version, is going to be this P365 in terms of having a 10-round magazine capacity, small size, great shootability, all of it. The only thing it's missing, and I think there may be some available now, but at the time was it didn't have the ability to mount a red dot. And I wasn't the biggest fan of the sights. I also had the SAS version of this gun, which is basically, it was this weird sighting system that Sig came out with where there were no sights. It was designed to be completely snagless so that you can draw and stuff. It was a little gimmicky. It worked, but it was a little weird. You kind of had to get used to it. Just look it up. If you don't know, it's these, I don't know if I just had to call it Springfield or not, but it's the Sig Sauer SAS P365. I still have that to this day. I don't shoot it. I don't use it. It just sits in my safe. I'd rather stick to the regular sights on this gun, but in many ways, it was conducive to the idea of point shooting. It was designed to be a point shooting gun while being also snagless. It didn't really catch on, but I did like the attempt. I like the intuitive. I like how, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm always going to praise a company for being experimental and trying to be innovative. And that was for lack of a better word, a very innovative sight structure. But the P365 for me was a game changer from a concealed carry standpoint. This is the gun that made me put down this gun. When this came out, I went to this. And now, if this had come out and it was just small and had high capacity, but it kind of recoil was kind of harsh and I just didn't shoot it as good, then sure, I would probably have still stuck with the Glock 26. However, I shot this really well. It felt really good in hand. And then not only that, you had the extended magazines where you could get 12, 13 rounds, 15 rounds. It's stupid. At this point, I think you could put a 20-round magazine in this thing. It's dumb. So it gives you the versatility of capacity when you really need it. But if you really need to go deep concealment and go really small with a gun that's very shootable, that's this right here. Like, this is the gun that I'm going to start actually looking into, what you call it, ankle carry. I bought like a bunch of different ankle holsters, and I'm going to start experimenting with ankle holsters now, especially now that you can start wearing baggy jeans nowadays. That said, this was the gun for me. This was the only limitation on it is that it is so small. You really had to work on your draw in terms of getting to the gun, because you kind of have to find where the handle is and get your hands on it. If you're running a 15-round magazine, it's not really a problem. If you're running in the kind of extended 13-round magazine, I believe, not really a problem. But when you start going flush, yeah, it's definitely, it could start to become a little bit harder to get to the gun. Now, the P365 is still in my handgun rotation for concealed carry guns. This is the gun I more or less go to when I really need to go as small as possible. This is the gun that I usually go with. That said, there are other guns that I ran with for a little bit too. And the next gun is going to be the Glock 43X. Now, the Glock 43X, here's the Glock 43X with, I have this Raven concealment Vanguard 2 holster on here. I used to rock Vanguard 2 holsters like crazy. I still do. Like, for instance, if I were to ever carry this, I don't really do it very much now. I don't really carry this gun that much now, but there was a time period where for a very long time I was carrying the Glock 43X. Now, when I did the video on this gun, I called it trash. Now, some of that was kind of clickbaity and just to kind of get people going. But the reason I call it trash was because I said it is a gun that the size of this gun and the magazine capacity, you got to think about it. I had just swan dived into the P365, and now, you know, you had the 43X come out, and the P365 is a smaller gun, but then Glock 43X comes out, or even the Glock 43, and the Glock 43 didn't even have a 10-round capacity, and then the Glock 43X comes out, and it has only a 10-round capacity. Now, in the video, I talked about how this gun wasn't, it was a very good shooting gun, felt really good in hand, especially with that longer grip, shorter slide. It was awesome in terms of the way it shot, ergonomics, all of it. But 10-round capacity in a gun this size compared to a gun that's this size, I'm like, yeah, no. Because like you're dealing here with, you know, you got that much grip. As you can see here, I don't know if you can see that. Let's see, there you go. You got that much grip still hanging at the bottom, and that's considerable when you start talking about putting guns in your pants. You don't really have a lot of space. Yeah, you don't really have a lot of space in terms of, you don't have a lot to give up in terms of room in your pants. You already got a lot going on as a guy. You got a wallet, you got your keys, you got your knife, you got your gun, you got all this crap. So this extraness in the grip could be a game, you know, could be kind of a deal breaker. Now, where this gun shined and why, even though technically it's a micro gun, but it's not, and it can pass. And here's why the only reason I'm letting it pass is because if you run the Shield magazines with this gun, you get 15 fucking rounds of 9mm in a gun this size. That is absolute insanity. Insanity. I know some people are here and there when it comes to the Shield magazines. I ran my Shield magazines with no issues, but to get 15 rounds out of a gun this size is crazy. But bringing it back, because this person asked me about 10 rounds, and I'm assuming it's because he's limited to 10 rounds, the Glock 43X barely makes the cut in terms of size, but it makes the cut everywhere else. Because if you look at it compared to the Glock 26, right? So we have, the interesting thing is, what makes this gun micro is not so much the length of the grip as it is the thinness of the gun. So grip-wise, I can get a 10-round magazine in the Glock 26, right? And it's shorter than this gun, where it typically matters the most. However, when it comes to width, the width of the gun, that's where you start running into issues in terms of, not necessarily running into issues, but where you want, some people are really big on making sure they have a thin gun. So even though this is a little bit longer, it makes up for it in how thin it is. It's as thin as any other gun in this list, maybe even a little bit thinner, honestly. And then you get 10 rounds. And, you know, like I said, this was kind of like my go-to for a long time. And I tried to set it up accordingly. You know, I had my suppressor height sights to co-witness with this Romeo dot, which I'm not the biggest fan of. And it's not so much just this Romeo dot. I'm not the biggest fan of these super micro red dots. I'll use them. I'll put them on my micro guns. But if I can avoid it, not that I will avoid it. It's just I'm always looking through them wishing I had a bigger window, which makes no sense because it's a micro gun, so it has to be smaller. So that Shield footprint, you're just stuck with it. It is what it is. Now, I set this gun up rather designed to be kind of like my go-to. At the time, I was running a Shield magazine. I had a magazine well here, a little micro magazine well here to help with reloads. I had, you know, suppressor height sights that were night sights. I got my red dot. This gun was ready to go. This was a gun that was ready to be like my go-to, my absolute go-to gun from a micro carry standpoint. That said, the next gun on here is going to be a gun that really surprised me, largely just because not that I didn't have a lot of expectation. It was just kind of a sleeper. And, FN just kind of dropped it on us out of nowhere. And then, a lot of people gave him shit because they're like kind of late to the party. But they came late to the party doing a really good job. And that's going to have to be the FN Reflex. The FN Reflex is such a great shooting gun. And it's a great fast shooting gun. And I love shooting this gun because I can shoot it so fast and I can shoot it so well. I'd say I shoot this comparable to the P365 from Sig. This gun is an internal hammer striker. It's an internal hammer. It's not a striker fire like these other guns. And you notice it in the way that the trigger feels. It's a very smooth trigger. Very smooth trigger. And I honestly think that it's just a very good looking gun in and of itself. And so I have a setup. Let me see if I have it here. I think it's somewhere behind me. Let's see. I have a setup that I have a Vetter holster setup that I do with it. All right. So this is my Vetter holster setup for the Reflex, as you can see here. You have the holster, of course, and then you have the caddy aspect of it. So the caddy, this whole system right here is kind of like, I want to go small, but I still want to carry a lot of rounds. So I could go flush here. It'll be 10 rounds. And if I wanted to, I can run an additional 10 rounds here. Because again, the limitation is 10 rounds for whatever reason. But for me, who doesn't have that limitation, I could run this, what is this, a freaking 17 round magazine? Maybe a 15, and I could run that here too and keep the footprint relatively small. Not relatively, really small. And so I really like this setup for those times. Like I said, I could just run a flush magazine and then have another 10 rounder here. I got 20 rounds on me. If I'm living in a state that caps my magazine capacity to 10 rounds, you get 10 plus 1, so 21 rounds. I mean, that's some serious firepower. So I think if I were living in a state that had a magazine limitation capacity, a capacity limitation, what the fuck you call it, I think I'm gonna have to go this route. This would kind of be my setup. I'd run a 10 round magazine here, 10 round magazine in the gun. It gives plus 1, give me 21 rounds. It's small, lightweight, really good shooting gun. You got the ability to run a red dot on it if you want to. I actually love the iron sights on this gun. That big, bright orange dot is just freaking awesome. Let's run it. Let's see here. I don't think you're gonna be able to see it. I don't know how I can do this without literally pointing a gun at myself. I don't know. Yeah, you're not gonna be able to see it, but just take my word for it. The sights on this gun are incredible. I love them. I really, really love the sights on this gun. And like I said, you can get, like this right here is the 11 round, I think it's 11 plus 1. You can get a flush that gives you 10. And this particular version right here has a safety on it. I know some people are kind of anti-safety, but I know a lot of people who love the idea of safeties. And then the safety on this is actually pretty intuitive. So it's not a big deal. So that's the FN Reflex. Like that, and that within that setup, you can't really beat it. Let's see here. So what's the next one? The next gun that I really like, that I don't talk about a lot, is gonna be the Canik Mete MC9. So imagine a thinner version of the Glock 26, right? The Glock 26 is, like I said, was the epitome, but now you get kind of the Glock 26 form factor, but a better looking gun. I always felt like the Canik was a better looking Glock, if you ask me. But you could run this with a 10 round magazine. You have the ability to mount a red dot on it. This gun shoots really well. And the one thing that stands out about this gun is gonna be the trigger. So with the Reflex, the trigger on this gun is really smooth. It's really what I call bouncy. So it allows you to shoot really fast. Whereas once you understand the rhythm of it, whereas the Meta is a striker fire gun that has a very, very good trigger. I think it's the trigger that the Glock should always have, but they don't. And that's why I think the Canik guns beat the Glock out in that regard, is that these triggers are exceptional. They're very smooth. They're too good for the gun at this price point. That's all I'm going to say. And what I mean, I'm not saying that the gun itself is bad, but I'm saying this trigger feels like a trigger that you would find on a $1,000 gun. And this gun is sitting somewhere in the $400 mark. And so from that perspective, this gun ergonomically feels great in hand. And it points really naturally. Triggers very smooth, very clean. It's not the same bouncy feel that you would get on like the FN Reflex. This one is a little more of a precise feel. So for me, I really, really like, especially for the price point, this is a damn good option. And truth be told, if you had to make me choose between a Glock 26 and this, I'm probably gonna go with the Canik. I'm just gonna be honest, just because the form factor is a lot slimmer than the Glock 26. The Glock 26 is a fat boy, is a big boy. So that's just gonna be the route that I'd have to go in that regard. Now, the next one is gonna be what I call like the budget workhorse, which is gonna be the Ruger Max 9. This is actually Peter's gun. I stole Peter's gun. Well, so I stole Peter's gun. I didn't steal Peter's gun, but I stole Peter's gun. You can say I borrowed it, whatever. And the only reason I borrowed it is because my Max 9 is at a different location, and I didn't have access to it right now. So the Max 9 is what I like to call the budget workhorse of the micro compact 10 round capacity type deal. I was very integral in the marketing for this gun when it first came out, and a big part of that was because I'm very known for kind of doing very high-end, high-dollar guns, and I wanted to market a gun that I thought was really good and really affordable, because I know the times when I didn't have a lot of money in order to afford certain guns, I would have to start from the bottom. And for me, that was like the SR9. I wish they would bring that back out. I don't know why. Or the SR9C. They got rid of that. I don't know why. Ruger, bring that shit back. Stop playing. But by and large, this is such a feature-heavy gun for the price point. It's kind of ridiculous. And then again, it's a very smaller gun. It leans a little bit bigger on the list compared to these other guns, but it makes up for it in how thin it is. And so for me, with all of the features you get on this gun, has a really nice smooth trigger. They did a good job upgrading its trigger from previous guns that had this trigger in it. So this trigger is really nice now. And then on top of that, you have the ability to mount a red dot. You have this fiber optic front sight. It is a feature heavy gun that just runs, and it's a good looking gun at that. So for me, for someone who's kind of on a budget and looking for a gun that's just a workhorse, like I said, a budget workhorse, the Max 9 is definitely going to be something you're going to want to look into. And again, you can get it with extended magazines if you need them, but if you're just looking for a flush 10 round fit, that's going to be, budget workhorse. This is going to be your guy. So then there's another gun on here that I want to talk about that kind of lives in that budget workhorse space too. And it's going to be the Mossberg MC2sc. So with this gun, as you can see here, technically, and again, like the witchery, whatever sorcery they're doing with these magazines on these guns is insane, because you have this gun that essentially has the same footprint as the Glock 26, except you get 11 rounds. See what I'm saying? Now you could get this with 10 rounds as well. And so that's another thing I'm going to talk about at the end of this when I finish talking about this particular gun. So I love this gun. I love this gun the same way that I love that Ruger Max 9. They're very different guns though. They feel very different. They shoot very different. And I think it's going to come down to personal preference in terms of which one someone's going to choose over the other, because they pretty much have the same feature sets. You can put a red dot on here. You have night sights on this gun. I believe they have a version that comes with the safety as well. And you got the flush mag capacity to get 10 rounds, but then also you can get extended magazines as well. They give you more rounds if you need it and you want it. And then you have what I like to call a very good trigger. I think the trigger on the Max 9 is better, but it is a very good trigger, especially for the price point that you're going to be playing around in with a gun like this. So the MC2sc is definitely in that category for anybody who's looking for the kind of like budget workhorse gun that is a micro 9 that has 10 rounds. And there is one gun that I don't have here because it's at another location. That's the only problem with, I keep different guns in certain, like I split time between 2 places. And so I'll leave certain guns some places, certain guns the other. And that's going to be the Springfield Hellcat. I remember when the P365, make sure I'm fucking this shit up. There we go. I remember when the P365 came out, and then after that came the Hellcat. And they basically, now you couldn't talk about a bigger rivalry in that regard, because the Hellcat came out, had the same capacity, same size. They shot differently. I think I shot the P365 a little bit better. I think the ergonomics on it pointed a lot better for me, but it was a damn good gun. And I knew a lot of people who liked it. Some people thought the Springfield Hellcat recoiled a little bit more than the P365. I like the Springfield Hellcat, and large reason why I like it a lot is because the commonality that I get with that and the gun that I typically carry the most as of right now, which is the Springfield Hellcat Pro. I remember getting that gun and just fell in love with it, but that's for another video. But because they have that crossover ability, I run the same mag, so forth and so on. That's one reason why I like the Springfield Hellcat. And so I kind of put that in the honorable mention space, largely just because I don't have that gun with me right now. It's at another location. But I kind of want to end with this. By and large, when you talk about finding the right gun for you, it's really, there's nothing more subjective than finding the perfect gun. You can look at the feature set and you can look at the numbers and the specs on paper, but that just only tells you half of the story. I can't tell you how many times a gun will look good on paper and then you just get in your hand, it just doesn't feel right. It's not that the gun is bad. It's just, it doesn't feel right for you. Everybody's hand ergonomics are so different. And so some people have big hands. Some people have small hands. Some people have a big palm, small fingers, long fingers, small palm. It's all over the place. And a lot of it really just comes down to you, for lack of a better saying, you got to kiss a lot of frogs to find why the hell would I use that analogy? But you've just got to go in and put your hands on the gun. Because nothing makes you feel more confident than picking up a gun and it just feels good in your hand. And so that's why I try to talk about guns the way that I do and try to explain the shooting experience and why it feels the way it feels, so that you can determine based on your hand mechanics, so to speak, whether that gun will feel good in your hand. There is no perfect gun. There's only guns that live and occupy a certain space, like the micro handgun space with capacity and on paper meet all of those things. But you have to get it in your hand. You have to shoot it, even down to recoil impulse. Some people will pick up a gun and feel like that gun does not recoil at all. And another person will pick it up and say, this gun recoils like a motherfucker. And the reason could be a number of things. It could be the ergonomics on that gun just work really well with that person's hand, so he can manage the recoil a lot easier. Whereas another person, it doesn't quite feel the same, so the perception of recoil is going to be a lot greater. All things considered, finding that right gun is really going to boil down to you getting your hands on that gun. Now, if you are someone who's living in a state that is limited to 10 rounds, you're likely limited to only certain guns anyway. So there's that. You got to factor that aspect of it in too. Let's see here. So what I say is go into gun stores, Like, take this list of guns that I just talked about here, and if any of them caught your eye, go into a gun store and just hold them. You can be surprised how much you can tell about a gun just by holding it. Now, you may not be entertained or intrigued about a certain gun I talk about here, but just go hold it anyway, because you can get there, pick it up, hold it, and you're like, damn, this thing feels really good in my hands. I like the balance. I love the weight. That's the things you kind of need to do. Dry fire the gun. Test the trigger out over and over and over and over again. Of course, ask them, hey, can I dry fire this? And then dry fire it and see if you like the trigger. Do you like the trigger reach? Can your finger reach the trigger well, or do you have too much reach, for lack of a better word? Those are the things that you're going to want to consider whenever you're looking for a gun of this nature. And then also remember, these type of guns are not the easiest guns to draw. So you're going to want to take whatever gun you decide to go with from an ergonomic standpoint, because that's generally speaking how you're going to pick it, unless you can go to a range and rent the guns and shoot them too. You're going to want to pick a gun. You're going to want to take that gun that you picked and get some draw strokes in, because when you start going down to these size of guns, it gets harder to get to them fast and fluidly. Just remember that. So you're going to want to have to constantly be drawing, work on your draw. And a lot of it could depend on also what you're wearing. So before you step out of the house, when you're carrying that gun, do a couple draws to see if you can actually get to that gun, because all pants are different. All belt systems are different. Unless you're wearing the same pants and t-shirt every single day, you're going to want to try to draw and figure out, hey, what unintended consequences did I come across as a result of having this gun in this size with these jeans, with these pants, so forth and so on. You're going to know that before you leave the house. But at the end of the day, when it comes to these micro-sized guns, I mean, I'm in a playland when it comes to that, because I'm so big on making sure nobody can tell I have a gun on me that I'm constantly testing out these different smaller guns. And we're at a point now where they're so high in capacity. They're so easy to shoot. They look good. They carry well, all of those things. And I love it. I really genuinely love where we're at right now in the gun space with terms of options. And I know a lot of people like to say, oh, everybody's just coming out with the same thing. Yeah, but not exactly, because again, all the ergonomic systems are different. The triggers are different. The accessories are different. The price points are different. The aesthetics are different. All of those things created enough distinction where different people are going to want certain things. They're going to lean towards certain things. So for the person that sent the email asking me about that, those are my option space where I say, hey, there is no best gun, but these are the guns that I really like and I really enjoy, and I have considerable amounts of time behind. Now, before I leave you, again, make sure you go and check out the guys over at Vetter Holsters. As you can see here, got my little Reflex setup. Check those guys out. I love them. Thank you guys for sponsoring the channel. And also head over to shop.Mr. Noir to grab your merch and your gear. You see, you got that. I got my need money for guns, drinking my coffee right here. I should not have done this. I doubled up on my coffee this morning, and now I'm all like, But also, get the hat, as you can see here, Right to Bear Arms hat. Go check out our new Defend America line. And then also my absolute favorites, AKT1 Blackouts, my favorite in-ear wireless Bluetooth hearing protection. I love those things. So hit the link in the description, check those out. Until we meet again on another episode of the Colion Noir Podcast.